Are psychedelics a shortcut to enlightenment? We're gonna go over so many sides, this video itself might as well be a shortcut, even if researching it was a longer cut than making a pizza for Mr. Beast. And of course, we don't promote the use of any drugs. I recognize I may be just a little biased, which is why I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, throw everything I know out the window and really try and start from scratch again and go through a variety of viewpoints. Which is really what you guys should be doing all the time if you want to be good learners and widen your understanding instead of just lengthening it and creating this massive spiritual schlong. Volume matters. From my research, and by the way, don't worry if you want to add more nuance or make other points, whatever you're thinking, I'll probably cover it later in the video, so watch till the end. But many people who believe psychedelics can't enlighten you seem to argue that they just offer a peak experience and then you're back to baseline after, like some rigid North Korean orchestrated Mexican wave. So let's start at the beginning. Can psychedelics bring personal growth in terms of curing addiction, healing from trauma, overcoming depression, and things like that? Well, pretty much all scientific and anecdotal evidence shows not only they can, but that they're really good at it, like insanely good. I really tried with this one, but I just can't see how it's reasonable to argue that psychedelics only give you a peak experience and then don't change your baseline at all in any way. At the very least, they have the potential to create a new baseline for you in the same way eating leafy greens every day, subscribing, or even smoking meth can. Why would we assume these things can, but psychedelics can't, when such a huge number of people consider their trips to be some of the most spiritually significant experiences of their lives? Yeah, I mean, the birth of my child was pretty meaningful, but brain going brrr, that's definitely top spot. So even if you argue that it doesn't have a baseline effect on your enlightenment in particular, as opposed to a baseline effect in any form, wouldn't you agree it's easier to come to enlightenment when you have better mental health and less obstacles like addiction? Considering a trip's afterglow can last weeks, months, and sometimes even years, that's a lot of time to nudge you towards enlightenment at the very least. So even if you're going to say that enlightenment is not a peak experience, whatever you're defining it to be as opposed to a peak experience, maybe psychedelics can still at least bring you closer to that. Does this always happen in every situation? Hell no. Some people might become less enlightened, and we also have to consider, what if this baseline change isn't actually pushing you towards enlightenment but away from it instead? After all, a lot of people do develop stronger egos that revolve around being super enlightened because they had this powerful psychedelic trip. The truth is, psychedelics are usually a lot riskier than most other spiritual practices, even if used responsibly, because they can pull your reality out from under you very suddenly, regardless of whether you've spent years and decades practicing and integrating spirituality and seeking truth. You're way less likely to be ready to face what you experience and more likely to resist or deny it. This might be why a lot of gurus might dismiss psychedelics as a method, and I definitely think there's some validity to this. You guys are pretty smart after all, only a brilliant mind can grow a beard like this. Psychedelics might be seen as using a bomb to kill a spider, pretty dangerous when you can just step on it the natural way, right? But we have to be careful because that doesn't suddenly mean the bomb is worse at killing the spider, even if it might be on average. The reality is some people are better off using the bomb and others are better off using their slipper or boyfriend or whatever. The point is that it depends on who you are and how you use it. These blanket statements are always flat out 100% wrong. Wait. Also, it's important to note that meditation and other spiritual practices have risks as well. You not finding any spiritual value in psychedelics doesn't necessarily mean your particular path is the one true path that everyone else also has to take and that no one would benefit from these substances. Some people might have a whole city of spiders, and unless their boyfriend is Putin, psychedelics might be the best for them. Where I do agree with many of these spiritual people is that psychedelics are often romanticized. Having sex with the universe doesn't necessarily mean emotional connection, you know? It could just be a one-night stand, and people act as if you just trip once or a few times and that's it, you're enlightened now. I don't actually think that's impossible, it's just stupidly rare, and realistically your trips need to be heavily integrated and you need to do the sober work as well to bring those benefits out into your daily life. My issue is, why is it that an enlightened master doing a workshop and talking out insights to someone helps them become enlightened, but psychedelics that have the potential to give you the same insights directly don't help you become enlightened? It seems a bit suspect, but I get that view's a bit extreme, and most gurus wouldn't really say that psychedelics can't help. This brings me to the big view amongst many spiritual people that psychedelics can only get you so far, and that once you've got the message, you hang up the phone and pursue things sober in the natural way to go the deepest possible. It's really sad because the guy who said this quote died a depressed alcoholic. If enlightenment to you is having a baseline egolessness, or to put scientifically, natural low default mode network activity in the brain as many experienced meditators have, why would we assume psychedelic use can't do this as well. There's no scientific evidence they can, but there's also no evidence they can't, and we know that whilst you're on them, that's exactly what they do. Anecdotally, there's a lot of evidence they can. It's already been shown that psychedelics can promote neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, and it's just common knowledge at this point that meditating even a month after a powerful trip is usually going to be more intense, profound, and enlightening than meditating without having had that trip. I don't disagree, psychedelics can only get you so far, but then why are we saying meditation can't only get you so far? Why would combining multiple spiritual practices in a balanced way be worse than only meditating or only doing breathwork? This isn't a monogamous person trying polyamory, each method tends to potentiate the other. Sorry DMT entities, my kundalini snake is also very sexy, I can't help myself. I mean, it's a fair enough belief that psychedelics can only give you so much, but I did a lot of research and I really can't seem to find a reason to believe it. Like Terence McKenna described, with meditation you're trying to go as far as you can by putting all of your weight on the gas pedal, but with psychedelics you're trying to slam the brakes. It's funny that these same people saying psychedelics can only show you so much are the ones taking way less than 1/100th the LD50 dose, and more often less than 1/500th the LD50 dose. For someone with no experience in something, a lot of these gurus seem very sure of themselves. I'm not going to pretend that I can know what 100 grams of mushrooms could show you until I've tried it, and I can admit I'm only not doing that because I'm too scared, not because the natural way can take you further. When has the natural way in any niche been more powerful than an artificially more efficient way? It's like digging with your hands and saying my excavator can only go so far, and hey, maybe it's not an excavator, maybe it's one of these, whatever the hell it's called, or something else, maybe, but how would you know that? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying anyone else is wrong, I'm saying how do they even know this without trying it? It's a bit weird to put these hard limits on what psychedelics can and can't do when you're meant to be conscious enough to realize, hey, we don't actually know what 100 grams or 200 grams or a kilogram of mushrooms will do to a person, other than make you my next video topic. And sure, this is impractical because most people wouldn't have the courage to do that, but anecdotally so many people get into spirituality because of psychedelics. Even these low dose trips are so meaningful that they converted more than 2/3 of atheists out of atheism in a DMT study. DMT, by the way, lasts no more than 15 minutes. And all of this brings us to the question that might finally be able to give us the answer: how do we even define enlightenment? This awakened master says enlightenment is one thing, and another awakened master says enlightenment is this other thing, so which really is it? I'm gonna answer that in a future video that will probably be even better and more controversial than this one, so subscribe and hit the bell icon if you don't want to miss it. Here's my opinion: yes, if you define enlightenment in certain ways, psychedelics can be a shortcut relative to certain niches. For example, the niche of time. You can potentially become enlightened much faster, but psychedelics are generally not a shortcut to enlightenment in terms of energy. Yeah, a 6-hour heroic dose mushroom trip is only 6 hours, but if it experientially feels like 10 years and then you still have to integrate it all afterwards, it's not really a shortcut unless you're sat outside of the experience physically watching someone come back 6 hours later. From their perspective, they took 10 years to come back. From their perspective, they went through death and rebirth thousands of times over and over again. From the perspective of the person taking the psychedelics, they are not experienced as a shortcut, and most people who've gone into the high doses recognize that. Can you awaken faster in human time? Sure. Can you awaken with less energy? Sometimes, but probably not. It might even take more energy because it will likely be more chaotic and unpredictable. After all, with everything being compressed down into 6 hours, some people would just rather stretch it out. This might be more healthy for them. Psychedelics are riskier, but they potentially come with a bigger reward. That's just what I think. I went from a hardcore atheist who liked all spirituality to someone who's been able to induce sober ego deaths in just a few years. And not right after a trip or taking some drug either, we're talking stone sober. Call it HPPD if you want, but it doesn't affect my life negatively, and it matches what most gurus seem to talk about when they talk about the power of now and being in and as the present moment. If you want to know more about how I did that very deliberately in just a few years, check out our website triptips.xyz. I want to hear all your thoughts too, so leave some comments. Hopefully you're impressed enough by this video to hit like and meet me in the next one. Peace.